to start today's battle rhythm by welcoming all the affiliates, the branch communities, four-star alliance members, veteran support organization, and guests. For today's battle rhythm, we're excited to have Steve Miska from the Department of Veteran Affairs. Steve is the Executive Director for the PACT Act. Please add questions for Steve in the chat box. After he has finished his presentation, we will have time for Q&A, followed by our collaboration in the breakout rooms. Today's session will conclude at 3:15. Steve, I'm going to pass the presentation over to you.
I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I am the Executive Director for the PACT Project Management Office. So my name is Steve Miska. I am a 25-year Army veteran, as many of my colleagues here at VA are. I am the son of a Vietnam veteran and the brother of a retired Army veteran as well. I want to talk to you about the PACT Act, which is all about toxic exposure, something which many of us who deploy to combat have found out about one way or another, either having been exposed to burn pits or spent a lot of time in areas that put you at risk to toxic substances. So this is very personal to me. I have family members, I know caregivers, survivors in my circle of friends who are, they are dealing with many of the issues that we'll talk about today on a daily basis. Any questions, we'll drop some information in the chat as well for people to follow up as well. And I'll give you some ways to learn more. And of course, we're always happy if we can't answer all your questions here, and I will leave time for Q&A. Then we'll take them back and we'll make sure to get back to you. And it was nice. I saw a few familiar names out there in the audience as well. Hugo Lenz being one of them, and I'm sure there are several others who I've collaborated with in other spaces before. So thanks for joining today. So the PACT Act is the largest expansion in VA healthcare and benefits in decades, if not our history. It's massive, and it's got the potential to bring in millions of more veterans. To date, we've already had over 3 million veterans screened for toxic substances and 500,000 claims submitted. The law just went into effect on January 1st. The law is very comprehensive in that there are 9 titles covering everything from the expansion of eligibility for both benefits and healthcare to how the VA does scientific research and health-related research and rolls that into what we call our presumptive process, our decision-making and governance capacity to determine what could be a presumptive condition. So let me explain why that is important. Prior to presumptive conditions, when a veteran comes to the VA, they need to basically show that they have a condition, right? Through a health professional verifies that, yes, you are suffering from whatever this condition is. And then they need to prove that that condition is by virtue of their military service. What presumptive conditions mean is that if you exhibit that condition, we automatically presume or assume that it is by virtue of your service. The burden of proof is no longer on the veteran to prove that it came about as a result of your service. So that's a real game changer in terms of applying for benefits. The law also expands. We've got leasing authorities for 31 new facilities across the country. And we're being very active in terms of expanding our capacity in order to handle the expected influx of demand, both for benefits and for healthcare. And that's been really important. We have really been hiring quickly from the end of last year all the way through the start of this year in order to have enough personnel to meet the demand. We are processing at historic rates. In already this year, we have had 38 or 39 days now, I think, of over 8,000 claims per day processed. Whereas in all of the history of the VA up till this point, we only had 6 days where we exceeded 8,000. One day we exceeded 9,000. So we're really ramping up the capacity to handle the claims that are coming in order to make sure the veterans get the benefits and the care that they have earned and deserve. So that's the basic gist of the law. There's a special enrollment period and application period for applying for benefits. And so what that is if you apply prior to August 9th of this year, your benefits will get backdated to August 10th of last year, August of 2022. So that's a big deal. That was all this was designed into the bill by Congress. And so we're actively reaching out across the country. We've been doing hundreds and thousands of different outreach events, both in person, virtual, to get the word out. And I would love for folks on this call to help get the word out to veterans, right? To let them know if they haven't applied for benefits, please apply for benefits, enroll, and help. You're also helping your fellow veterans out on your left and right, because the cohorts that we're looking at with respect to research gives us better insight into how to link future presumptives that might be out there. So all of that is it's a very dynamic space right now. And what I will do is there's a lot of myths we've been hearing out there, and I'm going to drop a link in the chat that talks about some of them. It was a really well done article in military.com. We've got plenty of materials on our website that are can go into more detail here, but one of the myths it talks about is it's only for Vietnam era veterans, and that is absolutely not true. That the PACT Act is comprehensive, and it actually can go back to World War II veterans and people exposed to radiation from nuclear sites, for example. And we're continually surveilling current conditions with respect to different exposures across the globe. So that research happens hand in hand, both independently at the VA, but also with our DoD counterparts, and in addition to the National Academy of Sciences and other partners out there that are keeping their finger on the pulse of health-related issues. If you file, nobody is actively looking to reevaluate. If you have a current level of disability, nobody's actively looking to reevaluate whether or not that still holds. Where our focus right now is receiving the influx of demand that is coming in as a result of so many more veterans being eligible for potential healthcare and benefits. There's currently about 19 million veterans in our country, and only about half of them are even in the VA system. And so the PACT Act is really a game changer in really expanding and broadening eligibility to many of those other veterans out there who were previously not eligible, or they could be like Vietnam veterans who did not have a positive experience when they returned from combat to our country. The climate in our country was very different at that time. The VA was very different. And our VA right now we are veteran-centric, we are collaborative, and we are transparent in how we do things. And so that's what we're all about, is putting out accurate information in terms of where we are, we might not get everything right, but we're going to work hard to, continue to afford more veterans, more care, more than ever before. And that when I use the word veteran, I'm not just talking about those of us who have worn the uniform. It also applies to survivors and caregivers and family members. Many survivors, sometimes they don't even think of themselves as a survivor, but they could be eligible for VA benefits as a result of the PACT Act, even if their veteran is no longer with us. And so help us get the word out to all these different circles. There is a backlog in terms of benefits, but we are just working like gangbusters, hiring more, modernizing our systems so that we can be more efficient in processing, but always making sure that in any individual case, it's not all automated. There are human checks and balances that are intentionally put in there to make sure everybody gets a fair look. And then lastly, the last myth there in that link that I dropped, talking about do I need to pay somebody to apply for benefits? You absolutely do not need to pay. You can apply free here at the VA. You can go online to va.gov/PACT and just apply online, or you can go through the amazing veteran service organizations, I'm sure many of which are on this call, and they can be your advocate as well and help you work through the system if you're concerned about how to go about doing it, or you would just like some good advice. So with that, I am going to stop talking so we have plenty of time for Q&A. And I don't know how you want to handle that, Jeanette, if you want to field it, or I can just field the questions that come in.
I'm not seeing any questions so far. So those of you that have questions, you have an expert right here. Please avail yourselves of the opportunity to talk to him and get some of the needed information.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Hey, how you doing? This is Roy Dobbins with Permian Warrior Partnership in Midland, Texas. I'm just curious, has the VA acknowledged, or are they going to acknowledge the folks that went to Ground Zero and the Pentagon as being in an area of exposure?
That's a great question, Roy. I don't know the answer to that question. All I can say is any exposures that are out there, we take seriously, and there are those who are at the Pentagon or at other sites, quite frankly, and they obviously would have been exposed by virtue of being there. They should apply.
Okay. And then you mentioned, survivors and eligible for, I guess, healthcare to the VA. Like, my kids and my wife were with me when we were at the Pentagon.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I was at Ground Zero and other places, but do they qualify de facto because we were stationed in an area that is considered exposure? High exposure?
Yeah, no, I think there's a possibility there. And so I think the way forward is for you to absolutely file a claim. And on that note, I would also, there might be folks on the call, or you might know people who have previously filed claims that were denied. And what we're encouraging people to do is to submit a supplemental claim, especially if your claim was denied for the PACT Act basically has 26 buckets of what we're calling presumptive conditions, but really they are buckets, and there are over 300 specific conditions when you break it all out. So I would recommend, submit the claim and let our experts take a look at it and see if you don't qualify.
Sure. Yeah. Like I'm taken care of, but I'm more asking questions to get them out there, just for people that may have had that situation, and we may run across that situation with our veterans that are reaching out to us too. So.
Yeah, no, great. Thanks for the question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Royce. So we've got two new questions that have come in. So I think the first one really kind of touches on the things that you were just saying. What can a veteran expect in the process of registering? What are the steps to enrollment? So what do they need to do?
Sure. So the if you've already applied for benefits, and you are eligible to enroll in VA healthcare, and the eligibility has expanded, right? So I saw somebody reference in Iraq. The normal eligibility prior to the PACT Act was for combat veterans. They got 5 years of VA healthcare eligibility after deploying home, and the PACT Act expanded that out to 10 years. So that's the first step. But if you apply for benefits, then we connect you with the Veteran Health Administration, and you go ahead and apply there. And as long as you're eligible for benefits, we get you in the system at whatever priority category you fit into. And anyway, I'm not the expert on the health side of things. I'm not a doctor, just a knuckle dragging infantry guy who spent a lot of time in combat. But I am the veterans advocate to connect you to those right resources, right? And so I was trying to get the link, but I'm just going to type it into the chat right now. If you go to va.gov/PACT, I'll drop that in there right there. That's where you can see all the different avenues, right? You can go on our website, you can call our hotline, you can go to a VSO, you can come into a veteran office, right? And our hotline, I'm going to drop that in there too, is 1-800-MY-VA-411. And so you dial that number up, and that'll take you to somebody who can also help you out if the website isn't really your thing. And I know, depending on people's level of comfort with technology, right? Sometimes they prefer the phone, sometimes they prefer the website and not have to talk to anybody on the phone, or sometimes they want to go sit down with somebody in person and have them help them out a little bit. And that could end up being a paper claim that gets mailed in via snail mail. So it just depends on personal preference, but we try to make sure that all doors are open and lead to you getting access to the care and benefits that you've earned.
Okay, thank you. So quick question here. Does the PACT Act cover yellow fields in Iraq?
So if you were in Iraq, I recommend you just apply, right? And so I spent 40 months in Iraq. I got the bonus plan. And you obviously were exposed if you were in Iraq. And so I would just recommend apply. You might not be exhibiting conditions right now. That's okay. Apply for your benefits, get in the system. And should you start exhibiting conditions down the road, then you're already in the system, and it'll just be that much easier to get the healthcare that you need.
All right, thank you for that one. Dexter wants to know, can a 100% service-connected veteran retroactively have a condition re-identified as exposure-related?
So I would absolutely recommend, Dexter, that you file a supplemental claim and have that looked at, because you don't know if that condition might start exhibiting itself down the road, right? And so if you've got it in your record, as a result of and the PACT Act gives you that opportunity, which previously it was not available prior to it being signed into law. I would just recommend, even though you're 100%, get it in your record.
Next question. Are there any studies on how IRFNA and UDMH affect or impact internal organs?
Okay, so I'm not a scientist, so somebody's going to need this. I'm trying to look for those acronyms right now. I'm not seeing them in the chat. Can we spell those out so I know what we're talking about? Or
Yes.
Jeanette, I can help. So it's Kathy Sylvia. I'm put a few years of Army trudging in my.
Take it away, Kathy.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So
Kathy.
I mean, I recorded it on my records. I've been using the VA healthcare since 1989, 88, 89. But and I call myself Humpty Dumpty. They've been keeping me together. But so this was the propellant for the missile system that I worked on and worked with and went all over Germany with, and also crawled in and out of the bunkers. We're not even talking about the warhead. We're talking about the rocket engine.
Yep.
So I'll put it on my healthcare form. My PCP has that. I went to both the local provider and the VA, and they gave me the we don't know. You know, like we don't know. So we don't know what we don't know. But the interesting thing is I'm trying to go back to my units to see some of the gentlemen have passed with anomalies in their bloodstream that may have been related to this, and really nobody knows how it relates. Was particularly interested in seeing there were very few women in that field, but I do know more than a handful, and I was interested in, I'm an MVP member too, so you guys have my blood, and to see what impact they may have for any of the organs, particularly reproductive organs, or, you know, I didn't have any kids. Don't know if that was kind of like the toxin of Agent Orange for the Vietnam era. Did it translate into these propellants? Don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, well, I thank you for being in the system, Kathy, and thank you for documenting that, because like you said, we might not have those exposures linked to specific conditions with the research right now, but that is very much a part of what we've got scientists and medical professionals attempting to better understand. And then what we want to do is tee those, once the research gets established to the point where we can see, okay, this is definitely, it looks like there's a clear linkage, then those decisions get sent to the secretary for a decision to make them presumptive, which, as I explained earlier, makes it much easier on the veteran population. So the other thing I would say is, I think you're aware that the PACT Act covers reproductive organs.
Yes.
And so that's something that, you know, should it manifest, you know, say through breast cancer, that would be something that, you know, you're really good on you to be talking to your primary care provider about that.
Yes, sir. Thanks for your answer. And I know that the PACT Act actually specifies the Air Force in the bunkers for the ICBMs, but they never mention anything about the Army folks that, you know, opened up or crawled in alongside of nuclear warheads in the bunkers. So it's just a little anomaly.
Yeah, and I would also flag that there are other, you know, it's not just the law is very specific in some areas, right? There are 3 nuclear sites that were identified from post-World War II era that either accidents occurred, testing was going on, and veterans were exposed. And as you point out, in your profession, I've heard from Navy submariners using propellant for torpedoes, for example, of the extreme toxic effects that exposure could have with those types of chemicals. And so while it's not currently covered by the law, this gives us a body of research to then take back to Congress and say, look, you need to let us expand this and cover these veterans, because even though it might not have happened in combat, they were exposed by virtue of their service, and they deserve and have earned these benefits.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have another person saying that they have an OIF son who currently lives in Germany. He signed up for the VA and has some benefits. They want to know how he can get hooked up with the PACT Act over in Germany.
So veterans can apply for benefits anywhere in the world, and we do have them applying anywhere in the world. So your son can absolutely just go online or call the hotline number, any of the other methods that I outlined earlier, and apply. And a lot of currently serving personnel don't realize that they are eligible for VA benefits even before their time in service ends, right? So for example, the VA loan, right? While you're on active duty, you can apply for a VA loan and get that underwriting benefit as a result. And then the healthcare becomes much more important, after you leave uniform, because then you're no longer able to access DoD's healthcare system. And so that's where VA steps in. And we're trying to make that a more seamless experience as well by doing a better job of getting DoD to share their data with us so that we can more proactively reach out to veterans as they transition out of service.
All right, somebody else is asking to talk about the differences between the PACT Act claims and other exposure-related programs like Camp Lejeune Water and the Burn Pit Registry.
So the Camp Lejeune Water exposure is part of the PACT Act. So I would recommend all the things I've been saying is, number one, with respect to Camp Lejeune, you absolutely do not need to pay anybody to qualify for your benefits. So there's a lot of law firms that are out there attempting to get veterans to promise a portion of any settlement they might get. And you do not need to do that to apply for your benefits. You can absolutely just go online, get in touch with a veteran service organization. VSOs are free, the VA is free, and apply for your benefits that way. That would be my first recommendation. The Burn Pit is one of 6 different registries that are out there that are that allow our researchers to access different cohorts of veterans. The Burn Pit is self-reported, so we're currently working through upgrading that in order to get better quality data there, because some of the data needs refinement and follow-up with some of the registries that are out there. And so that's why we're doing so many screenings. I mentioned we hit over 3 million screenings already, where a VA provider will do a toxic exposure screening with you. And then if you're not exhibiting symptoms, that's fine. But we're seeing about, I think it's 43% in that range of veterans who are being screened are exhibiting some sort of exposure that requires follow-up. And so anyway, I would just recommend submit a claim. And if you're already in the system, submit a supplemental claim. If you're not in the system, like Kathy, I've been in the VA system for a long time. When I retired, I decided that I wouldn't be able to understand what veterans, the type of healthcare they were experiencing if I was not inside the system with them. And I've been in the system and I have not regretted it ever since. The VA, I think, is the best healthcare system in the country. We consistently get rated either equal to or above private sector options. And it's holistic. And and why is that important? Because veterans come with usually numerous different types of issues that might be addressed through healthcare, right? My wife refers to me as a complicated case. So anyway, so you know, you get the whole buffet of healthcare, right? Whereas a lot of times in the private sector, it's more a boutique. You're going for one specific thing, and then you need to get referred elsewhere. Whereas in the VA, we use team approaches. And so you'll have a doctor with nurses and mental health professionals and others on the team who they can consult with right away and line up whatever services that you might require.
Okay. We've got another question from the Navajo Nation. Are there any new locations being added that we should know of? Also, when denied, does the file date restart from the new date of file?
So thank you for that question. There are 31 new lease locations that we've been authorized by virtue of the PACT Act. Now that's just the PACT Act. We're also looking at other ways, particularly in rural areas where many times it's hard to access any type of healthcare. And so we're looking at how to partner with our other departments like the Department of Defense or Health and Human Services in order to create a provider of choice healthcare facility that gives better access to rural veterans out there in some of the areas where they might have to travel a long way to get to a healthcare provider. So there are a lot of locations. I don't know specifically, you know, where, Bernie, where you're asking for, but I could always—
Arizona.
Arizona. Okay, I could always follow up on that too. And if Lauren would be so kind to take that question down, we'll follow up and find what facilities might be opening up out in Arizona. As far as if it was denied and then it gets approved, I know sometimes, Bernie, that conditions will be backdated all the way from the first time you filed. I don't know the technicalities of whether you know what condition you might have that would qualify for that, or if it would, but I would just say don't wait. I would say resubmit regardless, because even if it doesn't go all the way back, you might at least get the 2022 August date. But we look at those conditions that were not preemptive previously, and there is a possibility that it could get backdated from when you first filed a claim. And so I would encourage you to do that.
So we have someone on the call who is offering to share their experience today. He says they had an appointment today and wants to talk about their experience with being evaluated. So Hugo, can you, what would you like to share? Are you still with us?
I think Hugo left. I was chatting with him and it seems like he dropped off.
Okay. All right. Let me see if we have any other questions. I think we had one. Okay. Yeah, we have another one. This will be our final question. This person says, you said to apply for your benefits. Do you mean your overall disability rating, or do we file a supplemental claim under PACT Act, even if we're not showing symptoms? Still worried what those Iraq burn pits may do to us in the future.
Yeah, I would. So I would absolutely recommend that you file a claim with for the PACT Act, but also if you have any other conditions, a lot of times, especially on the healthcare side, somebody will file a PACT claim, but then when they come in for care, they get their bum knee taken care of, right? Or whatever the issue is. And that might not be from toxic exposure, it's just life. And because you're a veteran, you're probably pretty banged up because of the training and deployment experience. And so I would just definitely encourage everybody to, if you've got a question, absolutely call in to one of the experts, call into a veteran service organization and see what their folks are seeing from the thousands of claims that are coming in. They might be able to give you a read on trends as well. But I do think, I agree with you, you know, having spent a lot of time, every base I was on had burn pits. And there was a lot of other exposure going on besides the burn pits. And I would tell you that, you know, you don't know what's still in your tissues. When I told my VA doctor that I'd lost my sense of smell, right? And that's not like a disability rating or anything. That's just a quality of life thing. And when he had recommended that I go on he was recommended that I go on a what did he call it? A cleanse. And I didn't know what that was. And then when I read it, I knew I needed my wife to do it with me. Otherwise, I wasn't going to be able to pull that one off. You know, no coffee and no beer or whatever, hardly any sugar for like a week. It's all smoothies and vegetable broth and, you know, a little rice and chicken for dinner or something like that. And what I found was I wasn't hungry during the whole week, but my sense of smell actually came back. And what he said was, you know, I still had stuff residing in the different organs and tissues in my body as a result of those exposures. And so you can do things to help yourself, you know, cleanse, you know, get rid of that stuff. And so anyway, I would recommend, you know, have that conversation with your provider too.
All right. Steve, I'd like to thank you for a great presentation and particularly for the time you took to thoughtfully answer all of those questions, and to you all for asking good questions. I hope we learned some new things and some things that we can take forward. Allison, I'm going to turn it back over to you to introduce our breakout activity.
Our breakout activities are about to begin in a few seconds. I'm going to open up the breakout room for the collaboration activities. And when the rooms are open, you can self-select a topic that you'd like to go in. You select a room by clicking on the blue join button to the right of each topic. Today's topics are topic 1, general PACT discussion. That's going to be, Steve is going to continue on with us today. Excellent, thank you, Steve. Topic 2 is reaching veterans. We have a guest, Jared Turner from the Warrior Alliance, that's going to lead that one. And topic 3, lessons learned. That's going to be talking about it from the community level, and that's Will Atkinson from VetCan is going to help with that discussion, lead that discussion. In order to save time and have as much discussion as possible, please don't spend a lot of time introducing yourself. Just say, my name is Allison from America's Warrior Partnership. You're also welcome to turn your video cameras on. You might want to go ahead and put your organization by your name to kind of help that facilitate who everybody is. We're going to come back together in 25 minutes for a wrap up and to hear key takeaways from each group. The lead, you can either do that key takeaway for your group, or you can have somebody from your group share. That's fine. So I'm getting ready to open them now. You guys have a great time. See you in 25 minutes. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I am interested to hear the key takeaways. So Steve, did you have someone you would like to identify to share the key takeaways, or are you going to?
We didn't really structure the conversation that way. But for me, I think the key takeaways are just making sure that we continue to do forums like this and do a lot of outreach to answer questions, to help guide people toward different doors that can open for healthcare and benefits, and to keep that conversation going.
Excellent. And to segue on that, we had the second one was reaching veterans, the veteran engagement. How do you get the word out? So that was group number 2. Jared, I think you were kind of took the lead on that. Do you want to do the key takeaways, or do you want to pass the ball to someone else?
Allison, I can just read it. It's Crystal.
Okay, Crystal, that would be great. Thank
I
you.
just did a lot of bullet points. So
Perfect.
we talked about reaching veterans, getting creative with outreach opportunities. So some of our speakers talked about going to barbershops, pharmacies, churches, corporations where vets work, local bars, restaurants, radio advertisements, doing sessions in libraries, local malls, VFWs, and American Legions. And we kind of talked about how aging veterans, that's a hard population to reach and kind of work with. One of the participants mentioned that there was an aging senior center where they had, good practices, building good rapport with the social services and social workers there to get the word out to these groups.
So that's
Also talked about misinformation being huge, that there's a lot of assumptions. One of the speakers mentioned how the burn pit registry, there's an assumption that if you're on that registry, you're automatically applied for the PACT Act. And then in South Carolina, there's a lot of attorneys that are making PACT Act claims, and it's just a lot of ads out there. For Camp Lejeune, one of the participants mentioned that you do need an attorney to do that, to apply for that the earplug issue and the PACT Act are not related. So that was some more misinformation that was coming out. And then we just kind of went through each of the branches that were there, and we kind of just talked a little bit about stuff from their specific area. Do you want me to go into that?
No, that's good. We don't have a whole lot of time, so that's kind of like we just figured we'll just get a little taste of what people talked about and the most important. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Chris.
Oh yeah, it was good stuff.
Yeah, thanks for jumping in there. And we had our last group was a really small group. It was lessons learned. Will led that group. Will, did you guys have some key takeaways you could share with the group?
We did, and I'll have to pass it over to Jordan. She did a great job of serving as our note taker and facilitator. So she'll report those key takeaways now, I guess.
So we talked about the PACT Act on the community level and what we're seeing. It looks like we're having a lot of issues with veterans who are maybe applying, but they're getting corrections back and it's really confusing. They're being told to use different forms. The screening and ongoing appointments is not really clear on like what is what and what's going on there. Veterans are getting packets of PACT Act information. They're about, I don't know, 10 to 20 pages of information, and it's not really, the directions really aren't clear at all. And there's no training that we know of or have been like really about the process to be able to clearly help advise and interpret for the veterans, for different nonprofits to like get them to the PACT teams. And then a lot of people don't even know if their VA has a PACT team. There's also a need for more community engagement and language inclusion, including Indigenous languages, as well as international languages. As we know, there can be a lot of barriers with that, as well as National Guard inclusion. There seems to be a lot of gaps in eligibility, including the National Guard. And local CBOCs are having issues even getting the information and being able to advise at all. Their veterans is kind of what we have. Did I miss anything, Bernie and Will?
Oh, I think you covered it all.
Pretty extensive. Thank you.
Excellent. Good information. I think a lot of your group was very rural, I believe. So maybe that's why we're seeing so much barriers there. But good information. Thank you guys. Thank you for talking that out. So, and with that, I'm going to pass the ball back over to Jeanette for us to close out.
So I'd like to thank Steve Miska today for an informative presentation. I'd also like to thank Jared and Will for assisting us with the breakout sessions. It looked like you all had some good conversations, so thank you for participating with that and helping out with those discussions. And thank all of you for collaborating and sharing. At America's Warrior Partnership, we partner with communities to improve veterans' quality of life and thereby reduce veterans' death by suicide or self-harm. We believe communities are best equipped to improve the quality of life for veterans, and our goal here at America's Warrior Partnership, as well as our goal today, is to provide community partners like yourselves with information and best practices to help you deliver quality services to the veterans in your community. Our next Battle Rhythm will be June 5th, if you can even believe that we're that far into the year. And the focus that in that session will be on new treatment options for PTSD and TBI. So that sounds like a really good one that is going to be relevant for all of us that work in the veteran space. If you would like to participate by leading a breakout group, please let Allison know by contacting her at awilliams@americaswarriorpartnership.org. We're hoping that you all can attend. That one is going to be very important. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you on June 5th.
See you then.
Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.